Hi, we're now going to close Module 3, Intraday and Balancing Market, with the fifth block that looks at settlement approaches in those balancing markets. There are two approaches to consider: one price versus two price settlement. Before we reach that stage, let me remind you about what we learned in the previous block. We discussed the balancing market clearing and its mathematical formulation. Graphically, I explained you how to order the offers for upward and downward regulation, then forming the supply curve in this balancing market. We have the demand, which is expressed by the system operator after observing the imbalance to be managed, to be handled. And then at the crossing of the supply and demand curve, we observe the equilibrium point that permits to deduce the schedule for the balancing generators and the price, lambda B. Based on this quantity, we are now going to settle the balancing market. The first approach to settlement is the one price imbalance settlement. In that case, we consider that lambda B is the price for all situations. For upward regulation, we expect lambda B to be higher than lambda S, since all the offers for upward regulation were made at a price that is higher than lambda S. In the case where there is no imbalance, somehow lambda B is equal to lambda S. Then finally, in the case of downward regulation, we will have lambda B, which is less than lambda S, since all the offers expressed by the balancing generators were with prices lower than the day-ahead price. Now let's look at the consequences on settlement for those dispatched through the day-ahead market. If we're in a case of upward regulation for the system overall, there may be generators that are producing less than scheduled. Since the system is needing extra energy, what's happening here is that you're going to have to buy, as a generator, the energy that you're missing, that you are not delivering even though scheduled. You're going to have to pay for this energy lambda B. Remember that in the case of upward regulation, lambda B is greater than lambda S. So this is a penalizing situation, since you have received the price lambda S for supplying a certain amount of energy to the system, but for the part you're not delivering, you're going to have to pay lambda B to buy it from someone else. On the demand side, those who are consuming more than scheduled, they will also create a need for upward regulation, and for this extra energy they want to consume, they're also going to have to pay lambda B. Lambda B being greater than lambda S, this is a penalizing situation, since any amount of energy to be consumed extra is paid at a higher price compared to if you had bought it in the day-ahead market. For those on the other side, the generators that are producing more than scheduled and are actually helping the system, not on purpose, they will have to sell this extra energy at the price lambda B. By selling this extra energy at the price lambda B, somehow they're going to have a benefit, because they received the lambda S, the price lambda S from the day-ahead market, and now they are selling it back at the price lambda B, which is higher than lambda S. So we expect an extra revenue. Similarly, those on the demand side that are consuming less than scheduled have actually bought some energy at a price lambda S, and now they're going to sell it back at a price lambda B, which is higher than lambda S. So in that case, they're also going to have a revenue on the way. In the case of downward regulation, basically we have the same type of reasoning, since we also base the reasoning on lambda B. This was for the case of those generators that are inducing the system imbalance. And on the other side, for those balancing generators that are helping the system getting back to balance, they will simply buy or sell at the price lambda B. Let's look at an example based on our day-ahead market clearing. Remember, we have a number of units scheduled on the supply side and a number of units scheduled on the demand side. Here, even though scheduled, the unit J5 of Köppen CHP will be down during the hour of delivery. And therefore, the operator will not be able to deliver it, since there was no way also to get a match in the intraday market to cover for the potential imbalance. There, all the others are producing and consuming as planned. What's going to happen? In terms of the balancing auction, the system operator observes a need for delta P equal 60 megawatt hours. So there's a need for upward regulation, and we need to buy 60 megawatt hours from the balancing generators. If we were to clear the market based on those offering that we saw in the previous block of the module, we get to a price of 45 euro per megawatt hour. The scheduled balancing generators are B1 and B2, the first one being fully scheduled and the second one scheduled for only 30 megawatt hour. Both are in the upward direction. What is happening in terms of settlement? B1 and B2 are those who are helping the system as balancing generators. As I explained, they will receive the price lambda B for any unit of energy that they sell to the system. For both of them, this leads to 30 times 45, 1,350 euro. For G5, with the unit in imbalance, created this situation with upward regulation needs, G5 is going to have to pay for this amount of energy that is not delivered, and so it will have to pay 60 times 45, lambda B is equal to 45, that's 2,700 euro. If we were to look at the two market flows together, that means that G5 received from the day-ahead market 60 times 37.5, so that's 2,250 euro, but then this unit has to pay 60 times 45 equal 2,700 euro. So overall, that is a loss of 450 euro because this unit has not delivered the commitment through the market clearing, the day-ahead market clearing. For the balancing units, this B1 had received already 200 times 37.5 at the day-ahead market, so that's 7,500 euro, and then will receive 30 times 45 equal 1,350 euro at the balancing stage. So that seems to be a good operation for B1. Let's look at another example with the two wind farms, G1 and G2, that are operated by Rogue Trading and We Trust in Wind, for which the actual generation is not equal to what was foreseen to the forecast that were used at the time of day-ahead market clearing. So that means that for G1, there was a forecast of 50 megawatt per hour. That's what was eventually scheduled, but the actual generation is 30 megawatt hour. So there is a lack of energy that is not delivered by G1. For G2, what was scheduled based on the forecast was 120 megawatt hours, but the actual generation is more than that. It's 155. So there is a surplus of 35 megawatt hours that is delivered instead of the scheduled 120. All the others are producing and consuming as planned. For the balancing auction, we have to combine these two imbalances to find the overall system state. In terms of the system state, delta P is equal to minus 15. So that means that there's 15 megawatt hours too many in the system. We need downward regulation to put back the system into balance. Clearing the market based on the offers presented in the previous block, we reach lambda B equal 35 euro per megawatt hour. As explained, lambda B is less than the day-ahead market clearing price, and the scheduled balancing generator is B1, that is reducing by 15 megawatt hour, obviously in the downward direction. If we look at the settlement, this leads to G1 having to pay 20 for the missing 20 megawatt hour times 35. That's 700 euro. G2 is going to be paid for the extra amount of energy being produced at the price of 35 euro per megawatt hour. So that's 35 times 35 equal 1,225 euros. And finally, the balancing generator B1 is going to be paying 15 times 35 equal 525 euro, since actually by going downwards, B1 is selling back energy to the system. If we consider both day-ahead and balancing stages, you see that G1 received through the day-ahead market, 50 times 37.5 equal 1875, and then it has to pay back 20 times 35 equals 700 euro. It gives an overall revenue of 1175. There is a benefit for G1 since part of the energy that was paid originally at 37.5 euro is then sold back at 35. So for all this unit of energy, there's a benefit, a unitary benefit of 2.5 euro. On the other side, G2 has received 120 euro times 37.5 equal 4,500 through the day-ahead market, but then receive again for the extra energy 35 times 35 equal 1,225. This gives an overall revenue of 5,775 euro. There is an opportunity loss for G2, since you can see if G2 had predicted correctly that it would produce 155, it would have sold the whole 155 megawatt hour instead of 120 at the price of 37.5. While here it receives 37.5 euro per megawatt hour for the first 120 that were predicted, but then receives only 35 euro for the other unit of energy produced on top. So that's a loss of 2.5 euro per unit of energy that was badly predicted somehow. Finally, for B1, B1 received 200 times 37.5 equals 7,005 euro, so the day-ahead market clearing, and then has to pay back 15 times 35 since going downwards with its production, and the overall revenue is 7,175. Here again, it's a benefit for B1 since part of the energy that was originally paid at 37.5 euro is then sold, paid back at 35 euro per megawatt hour. So that's also a benefit of 2.5 euro per unit of energy for the balancing generator. This leads to some comments about this one price settlement in balancing market. First of all, the total payment from the day-ahead market participant for deviation from schedule is equal to the revenue or payment of the balancing generators. Since we use this price lambda B in all cases, then it is a budget balance and we have the same payment as we have revenues in the market. Regarding deviation, we have two potential situations. If your own imbalance is of the opposite sign of the system imbalance, then you're actually helping the system, and this will lead to some extra profit, as I showed from the example before. If your own imbalance has the same sign as the system, the overall system imbalance, then you're contributing to the imbalance yourself, and then this will lead to a loss. So we have this case that when you enter the balancing market, depending on the sign of your imbalance versus the sign of the overall imbalance, you may actually have a loss or a gain. What do you think could be the consequences? Do you think you would actually gamble and try to place yourself on one side to be a bit long or a bit short to see if we could not get this extra profit? This is actually a risk, and this is some of the argument of those who don't like the one price settlement approach. Are there ways to fix that? Yes, possibly, by going for this two price imbalance settlement. With this two price imbalance settlement, we use the same basic quantity as for the one price imbalance settlement, but now in the cases where we're going to help the system involuntarily through the balancing market, we will receive the price lambda S, that was the day-ahead market clearing price, instead of lambda B. So if you are to be penalized, you would be penalized with lambda B, and if you are to be rewarded, somehow you will be rewarded with lambda S. The basic properties are still the same. In the case of upward regulation, lambda B is going to be greater than lambda S, and in the case of downward regulation, lambda B is going to be less than lambda S. Let's look at it in practice. Now, let's say in a case of upward regulation, those generators that produce less than schedule, they will have to buy this energy they are missing at the price lambda b. Remember that lambda b is greater than lambda s, so you're actually going to be penalized as for the one price settlement approach. As for demand, if you are to consume more than schedule, then you have to buy this extra energy at the price lambda b. Again, lambda b is more than lambda s, so this acts as a penalization. The extra energy you have to buy is at a price that's higher than the original day-ahead market price. But for those who are in the other situation, like a generator that's producing more than schedule and that has to sell back to the system, he will sell back at the price lambda s. So somehow he received lambda s from the day-ahead market clearing for a certain amount of energy, and for part of this energy he will sell it back at lambda s. So it's as if nothing happened, it's as if you only got scheduled for this corrected amount directly at the price lambda s. Same goes on the demand side. Consuming less than schedule means that you must sell this difference at a price lambda s, and that's, as for generation, you're just correcting your schedule at the same price. So there is no penalization there, but there is no benefit also. In the case of downward regulation, it's basically the opposite type of reasoning, since lambda b and lambda s are just going to be applied to the different players. Still, those on the balancing generator side are simply selling or buying at the price lambda b so that they have this incentive to help the system. Let's look at how it works through our examples revisited in the two price imbalance settlements. Remember our first example, we had the unit G5 of Copenhagen CHP that is down during that hour, and that led to a need for upward regulation of 60 megawatt hour. The price lambda b is 45 euro per megawatt hour based on the clearing with the balancing generator offer of the previous block. The scheduled balancing generators are B1 and B2, B1 fully scheduled and B2 only 30 megawatt hour in the upward direction. In terms of settlement, we have G1, which is the unit that is placing the system in imbalance. This unit has to pay 60 times 45 equal 2,700 euro, while B1 and B2 receive 30 times 45 equal 1,350 euro. Looking at the settlement at both day-ahead and balancing stages, it is the same as before. We have only one unit which is inducing the system imbalance. The sign of the imbalance of this unit is the same as the sign of the overall imbalance. This unit is going to be penalized by applying the price lambda b at the balancing stage instead of lambda s at the day-ahead market clearing stage. In our second example with the forecasting errors, the wind forecasting errors, remember that we have two wind farms, one that is actually producing less than what is originally scheduled, and the other one producing more than what is originally scheduled. So there, in comparison, we have one of this wind farm that is actually having an imbalance of the same sign as the overall system imbalance, and the other one is having an imbalance of the opposite sign from the overall system imbalance. Here again, all the others are producing and consuming as planned, so we only consider the case of those generators and the balancing generator that is going to help put back the system into balance. We have a need for downward regulation for 15 megawatt hour. We have a price lambda b for balancing of 35 euro, and remember the day-ahead price lambda s is 37.5, and we have scheduled balancing generator downward B1 with 15 megawatt hour. In terms of settlement now, we have G1 having to pay 20 times 37.5 equals 750 euro. And this is instead of the 700 euro in the one price case. G2 receives similarly 35 times 35 equal 1225 euro. And this is where we have a difference between the one price and the two price settlement. As explained before, G1 is actually helping the system, not willingly, not voluntarily, but with this unforeseen imbalance, it's helping the system. So it's actually subject to the day-ahead price lambda s instead of lambda b, and there's not going to be any penalization in this case. G2 though has the sign of its imbalance, which is of the same sign of the overall imbalance. So that means G2 is actually contributing to making this imbalance, and therefore G2 receives lambda B, which is the penalizing price. For the balancing generator that offered to place back the system into balance, it's still subject to lambda B, so the calculation is the same as before. If you want, you can look at the overall settlement, combining both the head and balancing stages, so that you see the overall impact. Overall, you can see what are the differences between the one price and the two price imbalance settlement, and the potential impact on the strategic behavior of the market participants. Now, I would like to invite you to use the self-assessment quiz to check your understanding.